Welcome to the I Am Pausing podcast. I'm your host, Hannah, sitting down with leaders and experts at the forefront of performance and well-being. Join me for conversations about the science of rest, the cost of burnout, and the truth about real success. Settle in with a cup of tea and let's pause together. Welcome to I Am Pausing, a space for real conversations about pausing, well-being, and staying well in modern work and life. I'm Hannah, and today I'm thrilled to have Lauren Lunniss joining me. Lauren is the Health and Wellbeing Lead at BNP Paribas, where she's responsible for the well-being of thousands of employees across their corporate and institutional banking divisions. What I really admire about Lauren's work is that she tackles the topics that really matter. So she doesn't shy away from things like menopause support, women's health, and creating genuinely inclusive cultures where people feel comfortable talking about their actual health needs. Thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's start here. You've been in health and well-being for 17 years, 11 of those specifically in the corporate environment. Tell us a little bit about what drew you to this work originally.
Back to the beginning. So I guess from a young age, I've always been driven by a passion for helping others, and combining that with my love for exercise and sports, it led me to initially pursue a career in personal training and sports massage. So after obtaining my qualification, I got stuck straight in. I started working for a couple of gyms, and I was fortunate enough to have mentors who invested in my growth, particularly in the world of group exercise. Then when I was 19, I had a life-changing adventure, which began when I met my partner, and we bought a one-way ticket to Australia. So we embraced every single opportunity and experience that came our way whilst we were travelling. And then we thought, let's pop across to New Zealand, where we planned a 2-week trip, and it turned into nearly 5 years, where we really embedded ourselves as part of the community. I managed the only gym in town at that time, training and teaching classes to the wonderful community. But then we decided, let's return home. It's been a while. We were only supposed to be away for 6 months to a year, nearly 5 years later. So we came back in 2013. And this is where I had my first experience of corporate well-being. So I turned up for this interview, and it was a large investment bank. So the position was a fitness and studio manager. And I looked at this building, I said, this doesn't look like a gym to me. Maybe I'm in the wrong place. But anyway, I headed in because it was the same address, and I was blown away. I was absolutely amazed by the investment and the comprehensive approach to employee health. They had not only a gym, but they had doctors, they had an on-site lab, they had health screening. So it was here that I truly understood the impact of connected well-being on individuals, not just the physical element of it, which was what I studied and what I came to know until that point. Roll on to today. So my role is less about operations and more about strategy. I work within HR, collaborating with stakeholders to embed well-being throughout the whole of the business. And that's the key thing. Well-being affects every single facet of the business. So I've worked hard to make sure it is embedded. And I do this by using data insights from our benefit offerings and employee feedback. And we adapt our strategies focus year on year with this data that I have. So not only nurturing the initiatives that we have already embedded, but also to ensure that we are tackling, as you say, those taboo topics that we know are going to impact someone's well-being, be that physically, mentally, socially, financially, to engage the workforce and hope that they bring their best authentic selves to work, which is only going to benefit everyone, including the business.
Yeah, wow, what a journey. We've been kind of in working alongside each other for a little while now, and I've been really impressed by how thoughtfully you approach a well-being strategy. And it's not a performative wellness culture, it's real practical support for people that are navigating the pressures of modern work. And you mentioned there a holistic, it's not just physical, it's all aspects of well-being. I want to touch on, you've been in this for quite a long time now. How has you seen well-being change in the corporate environment over the last, say, 8 to 10 years?
Wow, how long have we got? Yeah, it's evolved significantly. There's many things that have contributed to the evolution of workplace well-being. Not only influences from the change in employee expectations, but also global events like the pandemic. We've absolutely seen a complete shift. Fortunately, where I am, we were in a good position already, but we're absolutely seeing more of a shift amongst our competitors or other industries in how they support well-being. Some key things to point out, going back to my point around data, so data-driven initiatives. So whilst this is still an evolving field and not every business is in a position to use their data yet because it's in its infancy, I have observed a significant trend towards data-driven insights in workplace well-being. And everyone asks me, how much data do you need, et cetera, et cetera. You need at least 5 years worth of data to see whether an initiative, a service, a benefit is making any sort of difference, because what you are doing is you are, as a well-being lead or someone that's in charge of the well-being decisions, you are essentially changing that intention behavioural gap. You are shortening it so that the individual takes on these proactive, preventative approaches and making those tweaks to their life to better their well-being. But that's not going to be an overnight result. Recently, I was a judge at the This Can Happen Awards, and I can confidently say that more businesses are now leveraging data to inform and refine their wellbeing strategies. It's not just an awareness day. It's like, what do you want to achieve out of that awareness day? Is it more people taking up the service that you're signposting to? Or is it that you're seeing less mental health absence days? So it's understanding what is the impact of what you are trying to heighten within your workplace. And the only way you could do that is by tracking through feedback, tracking through service utilization, tracking through the results that come out from those benefits. So that's my first and foremost. I'm definitely a numbers girl, and I love seeing the data. To put it into perspective, we have, I personally have been working on our mental wellbeing dashboard internally, and this now is communicated to board level, which is fantastic. It's the first time we've been able to get this sort of data in front of those key decision makers. And as part of that, what I'm looking at is the absence leave data. Now, bear in mind, this is recorded absence leave. So it's down to the individual to actually declare they're taking that time off due to mental health reasons or due to menopausal reasons, which we have the options within our HR platform to do so. So it's taking that data, it's looking at it from a gender perspective. I can look at it from a department perspective as well, but at the moment we're just focused on gender. And then it's cross-referencing it with the services and support that we offer to see if there are any trends that come out of it. This is very much in its infancy. We're only coming up to a full year now, so I'm not going to jump out of my seat just yet. But the exciting thing I am seeing is that whilst we are a male-dominant workforce, we're seeing the flip side of that for the utilization of the services. So more of our female colleagues are actually using the services. And from what we can see from the absence leave data is that whilst more days are taken off by our female employees, average days lost are taken due to mental health reasons.
Can I just dig into that a little bit there? What's an average day lost?
So this is based on how many days you've taken versus the incidences. So how many times it's been logged. So if someone was off for 1 day, but off 3 days, 3 times in the year, their average days lost would be 1 day or less, because it's the instances, it's not cumulative in a row. Whereas our male colleagues are taking less incidences, but more days off. And I'm talking 2/3 more days off in a row. So instead of, this is what I think the data's telling me, instead of those individuals recognizing the signs and symptoms and saying, I need to stop for a moment, and then they're off for a less period of time to come back and they feel in a better position to continue working. Our male population, from the data that is telling me, are waiting until it gets too far and they hit a wall, they hit the burnout, and they're off for long-term sick.
Wow.
So that's what we're seeing at the moment. Those are the trends. Like I said, I'm not going to jump out of my seat just yet. But if we're seeing the same trends going into 2026, then yes, I could confidently say that this is the pattern we're seeing. Also, with the utilisation of services, because our female population are taking up the services more than our male population, you could say that's an early intervention. So that early intervention is reducing the amount of time those individuals are taken off due to mental health reasons. So it is exciting, but I wouldn't have known that unless I started tracking it. The first quarter that I had, there was a little bit of a trend, but then it started accumulating as we went through the year, and it'll be interesting to see what Q4 looks like as well. So yeah, this is the exciting thing. This is the importance of data, and regardless if you have no data, some data, try and find a way to get that data and track it. So that's important. Do you want to talk any more about data, or shall I move on to
No, I was
potential
going to
next
say,
step
like, this
changes?
is fascinating. I do just have a question because it's,
Yeah, of course.
you're very advanced when it comes to this data tracking, and gosh, 5 years of data to be able to make a confident decision. That's a long period of time.
Yeah.
So if I'm an HR leader at a company and I'm just getting started with data and tracking the initiatives that I'm running, what are the most important metrics that I should start with as a baseline?
Absence leave. So recorded absence leave for sure. The key thing about absence leave is making sure that you have definitive options. It can't just be, I'm off because I've got a headache. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've got mental health, we've got menopause absence leave, we've got fertility absence leave. To be able to capture that core audience, you need to make sure that you've got that option available and that the individuals know that that option is available. So in any of your communications around like May Mental Health Week or a World Mental Health Day or anything to do with mental health, you could say, by the way, did you know you can log your mental health days via your HR absence leave portal? And whilst the exec board maybe initially felt concerned about the data, the level of data that was coming through, by no means was it a huge amount, but it's the first time they'd seen it. What I did to alleviate the pressure was these individuals didn't have to log it as mental health. But what this demonstrates is that we are building a culture where they feel psychologically safe to declare it as mental health and not declare it as a headache or they've got a cold. So seeing that grow shouldn't be seen as a negative. It should be seen as a positive because mental health has always been there. It's not something that's just come about all of a sudden. It's always been there because these individuals feel confident enough to actually declare it as mental health absence leave. You should see that as a positive. So yeah, having the options as absence leave in the portal. So if you want to start with mental health, then branch it out. With menopause, for instance, when we introduced it, from year 1 to year 2, we saw a 300% increase in people declaring absence leave due to menopausal reasons, which is fantastic. Again, they feel comfortable and competent. We're starting to break the taboo to actually declare it as menopausal reasons. They know that will go to their manager. So that demonstrates to me as a positive shift in the culture of that taboo topic. Then, yes, the utilisation of services. Work with your service providers, see what level of information you can get. I wouldn't make it too complex. So, for instance, I have the amount of appointments or cases because sometimes you need more than one appointment, say for like occupational health. So I go off the cases, unique cases, the gender split to see how it falls in line with your building population or workforce population. And then any feedback that you can receive as part of our occupational health, we can also see whether it's work-related reasons that the individual has gone to occupational health, and we can see how that looks. And generally, it's about 20% of the cases that go through occupational health are due to work-related issues, and we're not seeing a significant change quarter on quarter. But that's something to track as well because you never know. I don't know, there's a bout of redundancies, for instance, all of a sudden that could spike, but we could say, well, it could be because of redundancies that has caused a heightened awareness of going to the occupational health advisor and speaking to them about next steps. So yeah, there's a number of metrics. I say start in the most simplest form, or even see what you haven't got in place to get it in place before you move forwards. But yes, it's exciting, it's interesting, and it helps you put the argument forward as to why you need a certain benefit to, I hate saying this, to plug a gap, but you know what I mean. There's an area that needs focus on, and we haven't got anything within our benefit providers to support that. So we need to find something that does. But also it gives more credibility to workplace wellbeing, because at the moment there is no solid structure for delivering wellbeing in the workplace. It's one of the hardest things to report on ROI. Hardest things to do alongside D&I. So find a way that you can actually demonstrate that and demonstrate any of the impacts that wellbeing is doing to improve those stats.
Yeah, I just think that's amazing. Starting with data, start simple, look at what you've already got. And, even just that small tweak of breaking down absence leave by different buckets and how that's enabling people to feel comfortable to say, I'm off today because of my mental health. I'm off today because of the menopause. That takes a lot of courage in
It does.
an environment, especially a male-dominated environment like a bank, where men aren't as good at talking about these topics in general as women. But regardless of gender, you're really creating a culture, like you said, that is psychologically safe just by a seemingly small change in how someone logs a sick day or a day off in a system, which then has such a ripple down effect in not only creating a psychologically safe culture, but the way that you can then use that data to inform decisions, to talk to leadership. And as you said, well-being strategy has been is still, let's be honest, such a conscientious topic. I talk to leaders every day who are telling me some of the leadership team see this as a nice to have. They don't, they're not believing in the value. So you talked about data, but how else do you sort of approach those conversations?
Feedback. I think one of your most powerful tools is the feedback from the employees. If senior managers can clearly see the true impact that individual has had, so let's take health screening, for instance, early intervention, proactive approaches, the importance of going for your health screen. It's 3 hours out of your working day. Absolutely understand that. But those 3 hours could reduce the risk or pick up anything much quicker than if you were to just leave it and not go for your health screen. So it's that early intervention piece. So when we speak to senior leaders about the importance of encouraging their team to take up those interventions, we bring forwards the feedback that we've received, or any data around, okay, well, this year we managed to pick up 3 early stage cancers, which means those individuals are able to get the treatment quicker and more likely to be back at work sooner. So it's better for the business, also better for their mental well-being, and it's the right thing to do. But all it took was them to have that 3 hours out to go for their health screening, and it was picked up. So by you encouraging that, not only are you creating the culture within your team that you care about their well-being, and this is a big thing as well, because I think managers feel like they need to be the expert in everything. And we've always said to them, you're not the expert. The main thing you need to do is you need to be open, you need to be empathetic, and you need to know where to signpost. And internally, we try to make it as easy as possible as to where to signpost. There's a one-stop shop hub for wellbeing, all things wellbeing, and it's the easiest thing to find. But the ways that people feel like they need to demonstrate that they're open, they're thinking in a too complex way. All it takes is at the end of a team meeting for that senior manager to go, oh, by the way, did you know there's this event going on around Neurodiversity at lunchtime? I reckon it's worth you popping your head in and having a little look. Or did you know there's this new service coming up? It's going to help you with X, Y, and Z. Check it out. Because although we're all adults, because the senior manager, your manager, has turned around to you and said that this event or this service is available, you feel like you've got permission to then attend that event or to access that service. And it's just those small tweaks that can make a world of difference to create that open environment that their team members feel they can approach you when they're struggling, when they're going through a tough time, and that you would be able to help them. So this is the sort of thing we're working on with senior managers, and more of them are really opening up to it. I think every single manager I've come across, they've never been against it. I just honestly believe it's a confidence thing, because they feel like they're expected to know everything, and they're not. So in order to support them as well, we created a network of wellbeing champions who are the wellbeing advocates within their department. Every single department has a wellbeing champion, at least one, most have 2 or 3. And those wellbeing champions are the ones that almost join my wellbeing team. They're an extension of my team, basically, my wellbeing team, to their managers, to give them that confidence to move forwards with anything wellbeing related. And we've absolutely seen a positive benefit to it. So 2025 was the first full year of things like training and embedding the wellbeing champions, which were transferred over from mental health first aiders. Some of them are also menopause champions, so they've got subspecialities. But what we've done, what we've seen is whilst our internal communication, so we have a quarterly health and wellbeing newsletter that goes out to all employees. Whilst we've seen a slight reduction in that, I think it's about 4% reduction in people opening those emails. It's still very high. It's one of the highest opened. I think it's like 74%, whereas it was 78% in 2024. We've actually seen a 5% increase in event attendance. And I honestly believe that's because we cascade the messages to the wellbeing champions, and it's down to them to cascade it amongst their department. And absolutely believe they've had that positive effect to still engage a cohort to come along to our events or engage in our services, rather than just relying solely on that quarterly health and wellbeing newsletter. So I can definitely see the positives of champions to connect to senior managers as well as their colleagues.
Yeah, you mentioned a key word there that I just want to pull out, which is permission.
Yes.
Right? Giving people permission. This is also a conversation that I hear spoken about a lot, which and it seems like, by working with the senior managers, by implementing wellbeing advocates in all of the teams to be an extension of your team, it is giving people that permission that sometimes, like you said, let's be honest, we can see something in an email, but it's not until somebody who sits a couple of desks away from us says to us, there's a really good event going on. This is part of like our human culture, right? We are human culture, but we are human beings. And this brings me on to another topic, which I am really interested to dig into with you today, which is we're in a new age. We're in the age of AI. And one of the topics that you and I have had a conversation about before is this topic of mental exhaustion, and how, is there a correlation between how many tools we're equipping people with and the environment that we're in, where there seems to be a rising expectation to get more done quicker, and how that has an impact on our levels of kind of mental and physical energy.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think the biggest red flag. So the biggest red flag that we're seeing, and it's always been there again, but it's coming more to the forefront, is burnout. It's always been the risk, and all of a sudden it just creeps up on you and just knocks you off balance. So throw in the mix AI, and whilst it's been great for some people in terms of making them more efficient. So for instance, I like using AI to help me with rewording stuff, because I'm a numbers girl. I've always been a numbers girl. I know what I want to say up here, but I don't always know how to articulate it, especially in a written way. So I use that because I could spend half an hour on one email response, because I know what I want to say, but I just can't get it down. So I'll chuck that into AI, and then it'll spit something back at me, and I'll pick out the bits that I like and then elaborate on other bits. So that's helped me. The problem with that is, yes, it's made me more efficient, but it's realizing that because I've been able to free my brain up from the exhaustion of trying to articulate what I would like to articulate. I'm filling it with other things that I am very good at in terms of data. So I'm not giving myself the opportunity to pause. And whilst there's an expectation, I guess, to a degree with the workplace, I think it's more us as individuals not being aware of how we are loading ourselves up with these extra tools that help support us become more efficient. You almost become your own worst enemy because you're like, okay, well, I've managed to get that done quickly. Now I can focus on this. And you're churning out work faster than you would have done previous to these tools. And then therefore, once you finish something, you move on to the next thing. So the business just keeps giving you more work. So we also need to take a moment and pause, step back and reflect on what we're doing and what's important and how we move forwards. And I do believe to a degree that we have the ability to control that. But it's just being aware of what we're doing. We're in an always on environment. I think I saw a saying, you wake up, you look at little screen, then you look at medium screen, still looking at little screen, then you look at big screen in the night. So we're constantly switched on with a screen in front of us. I mean, I've got one in front of me now. I've got one to the side of me, and I'll probably watch TV with the boys later. So it's also what can we do within our control to prevent burnout whilst also appreciating these tools and utilizing them as effectively as possible for our individual needs without pushing ourselves too far. So I think there's a combination with AI. I absolutely see the benefits of it. But yeah, there is a danger. There is a danger we are going to hit burnout a lot sooner than before these tools.
Speaking my language, yeah, it's the cognitive load that we underestimate, like you said, of going from the moment we wake up in the morning, looking at the screen, that gives us all of our notifications, all this external noise for the day, and that just doesn't stop. And that's a lot of the work that we're doing at I Am Pausing starts with education, just delivering a session where we educate employees on, like, I literally have like a chart which is like a day in your nervous system, and it starts with, and up here you've got your fight or flight sympathetic response, then you've got your rest and digest, and it starts with, if you sleep with your phone next to your bed like the majority of people do, and the first thing you do in the morning when you open your eyes is pick up that phone, you're spiking, this is what's happening physically in your body, right? And then the next thing you do is make a cup of coffee, right? And then the next thing you do, and this is how our nervous system works. And like you said, burnout is the risk, because if we keep hitting, we'll have this, what's called the window of tolerance, gets smaller and smaller over time. And burnout happens when we have no window left. We have no capacity for the things that we normally would because we've just been inundated. So yeah, it's challenging. And with AI, with these tools, it's only getting worse. So you alluded to kind of how you use AI and how you're noticing that in yourself. I'd love to know, you're responsible for the well-being of thousands of people. How do you personally take care of your own well-being? How do you remember to pause? What does that look like for you?
Well, the difficulty for me, Hannah, is I have two small people to look after as well. So it's a little bit trickier. And I guess this is also something that needs to be considered when you're delivering things like sleep webinars to your population. Parents won't be able to get 7-8 hours of sleep. So yeah, it's just being mindful of that. But, I'll make sure I've got stuff in front of me. So for instance, this, where I could do some stretching and stuff, and take a moment just to sit back, even if it's a couple of minutes, take my dog for a walk if I'm working from home. The funny thing is, and it's not the funny thing actually, I think it's something that everyone should really consider where possible, is when I'm in the office, I will try my hardest to make sure I don't have any virtual calls. I make sure I have all of my meetings in person, so I step away from the desk. The amount of steps I do when I go into London is phenomenal, because I know that for 2-3 days of the week, I'm sat in front of my desk at home. So I try to make sure that I work my diary appropriately so that I'm not sat at the desk at work and have those face-to-face, build that community, build that personal experience, because of course lockdown hindered us with that, actual human interaction. But yes, I try and walk my dog. My poor dog, bless him, he hasn't been out for a couple of days though because the weather's been shocking. But yeah, I try and get my dog out there, exercise. Fortunately, I have got an exercise space at home that I can use. And music. I love music. So even if I am in front of the computer, if I'm looking at data, for instance, I'll stick my headphones in and I'll be able to zone my brain out whilst also doing the work that I'm doing. So I feel that calms me. But everyone's different. And going back to your point around like coffee, etc. I used to be a coffee addict, absolute addict. Even when I was teaching classes, in between each one, I would be doing like a double espresso. I try to have only one a day now. Sometimes I have two. But yeah, it's just being mindful of what you're putting in your body and how it makes you feel. So if you feel like you're grinding your teeth or feeling the jitters or anything along those lines, maybe it's best to back off the caffeine, have more water. I always make sure there's a big bottle of water next to me, so it's there already. I can just sip on it. So yes, all these little tweaks that you can add in that will help support your own personal circumstances, because I think that's the key thing. We all have different challenges in our life, be that we've got children or we're a carer or a single person, and you've got so much more to work on in your home. There's different challenges that we're all facing, and you need to tailor your approach to your well-being that suits your own personal circumstances. But also don't put pressure on yourself. I think we get too caught up in our heads to what we should and shouldn't be doing instead of doing something. So a key message that I share is the main thing is that you are moving. You don't have to do a full scale workout every single day if time doesn't permit because of other circumstances. 5-10 minutes could be enough, be that breathing, meditation, be that yoga, be that lifting some weights, just something that you're able to move your body and get the blood pumping around it and step away from the digital always on era. So there's a number of things to throw in there, but as I say, it's down to everyone's personal circumstances and situations as to how you need to adapt or tweak anything in your life.
Yeah, I think what you just said there about like a little goes a long way. It can be 5 or 10 minutes. That's what changed things for me I was an individual who, throughout my corporate career, I experienced multiple burnouts in showing up in my body in different ways, from, debilitating back pain and shoulder pain to emotional outbursts that then left me kind of in bed for a week. Those changed over the years. And what's helped me not burn out now is literally what you just said. I used to think that I needed at least an hour to do anything that was good for my well-being. But being able to just have 5 or 10 minutes, particularly after an activating event. So I don't say a stressful event, right? Even now with you recording this podcast, this is exciting. So my nervous system is activated. It's a similar response in my body to if I was in a very stressful environment. And so I know that after this podcast recording, before my next meeting, I'm going to go probably what I like to do. I also love music, play my favorite track, have a little dance and a move around and shake my body. And by the way, I do this when I'm in office environments too.
Yeah, why
Or do
not?
a few breaths, a few of my favorite physiological sighing breaths. So yeah, that is what's changed my life completely. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to get that across. You did mention one other topic just then, which is hybrid work since COVID. I'd love to know how that is playing a part in your current strategy.
Yes, absolutely. I guess the key thing for us is the engagement. So whenever we organise an event, we ensure that it's hybrid. So we have in person as well as virtual. If it's a taboo topic, we generally just stick with virtual because we want to encourage people to come along without having to worry about turn up in person. But it's how we communicate, it's how we spread awareness. we make sure that we can engage a bigger audience by offering both options of in-person and virtual for the same live session that we deliver. Other things that we do as well is we look at the providers to see how they can be more accessible. So digital innovation, again, rapidly evolved during the pandemic. And we've made sure that people could access virtual or in-person appointments for things like the GP, but also, or the psychologist, but also with our taboo topics, we partnered with a provider who basically it's in the palm of your hand. It's an app and you're able to access information on menopause, fertility, men's health, women's health, and pregnancy and early parenthood. So you're able to look at resources, videos, you're able to chat to a practitioner either via a chat box or for a virtual call. So again, making sure that there's a low barrier to entry for any of the services that we offer. And then we also look at, I guess, locations. So instead of the individual having to come into the office to access a service, to see a GP, so we've got the digital option, but if they do want a face-to-face, we look at the providers to see, I guess, their the geographical reach and just make sure that there are clinics close to home or as close to home then rather than just come into London. So yeah, there's multiple things that we look at with our providers to ensure that our employees can access some form of service that can help support them when they need it most. So yeah, there's many things you need to consider for a hybrid working. Granted, not every single department is able to have the privilege of working from home. Obviously, we're an investment bank, so traders can't work from home, for instance. So we make sure that we do more in-person stuff. We take wellbeing to them. We go up to their floors and offer check-ins with like the nutritionist. She'll have a room and then people could just come in and chat to her. Or like body stat machine where they just stand up on it. So it's not too much time, but it's enough to flick a switch in their mind and be like, okay, these are your stats. This is what we can do to support you. Let's get you booked in for a gym program or a nutritional consultation, or have you done your health screen? And it just prompts people, because as you say, people have email fatigue. And the first thing that's ignored when you're busy with your emails is anything to do with wellbeing related offerings, because that's something for you. That's not something for the business. That's the way you see it. So if we can get wellbeing in front of people and automatically book them in there and then, so with the traders, we're seeing more and more of them actually engage with our events and with our services off the back of those in-person outreach sessions. But then there's other departments that are only in 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week. And, we engage them in different ways, even like Teams chat. So I've set up a Teams chat for wellbeing champions, for instance, and that's where I'll ping messages in. It could be something motivational. It could be, oh, this event's going on today. Can you just cascade with your colleagues? So it's using all the options available to you to reach a wider audience.
This is why I love our conversations, because your level of detail and tailoring, I just asked about hybrid work, and you're now not just thinking about hybrid work in general terms, you're thinking about specific roles, traders who need things in person, whereas others could feel more comfortable at home for certain topics. So it's so nuanced. And I think that's one of the key things that I'm seeing from you and from others who are really pioneering workplace well-being, is that it has to be custom, and it has to be, there's lots of levels of thought. You can't just like brush everyone with the same, paint everyone with the same brush.
And it has to be connected, because as we alluded to at the beginning, we'll take the 4 pillars: mental, physical, social, financial. If you were to have an impact on any of those, so say, I don't know, you've got financial constraints at the moment, you're really struggling with your finances, it's going to affect your sleep because you're going to be worrying. So that's going to be an MSK issue, because you're probably going to end up with neck ache, backache, etc. Your mental health, because of the worry and the fact that you're not getting any sleep. You don't have much money, so it's going to affect your social health. So it's making sure that people are aware that wherever they are in their challenges, they can enter this connected wellbeing circle and be able to access all these services support that will support across all of those pillars, so that they can get back to their best authentic selves and being happier and healthier, but also more productive for the business. It's important that they are connected, that they are easily accessible, that they are regularly communicated without fatigue of that communication. So finding different ways to get that information out there, be that the quarterly newsletter, or we have digital screens. I'm in the middle of creating a video for neurodiversity in the workplace, feedback, surveys. There's just different ways that you can get that information out there, and hopefully engage a different member of the audience that maybe it wasn't relevant to them the first time you did that awareness campaign, but maybe it's more relevant to them now. And those are the people that you don't want to lose just because you've thought, oh yeah, we've already covered that, we don't need to do it anymore. It has to be a continuous drum beat. So the way we structure our strategy is we'll have our calendar of events around key awareness days, or it could be that the awareness days happened, we use that as the communication opportunity, and then we have the event afterwards. But we have what I call my BAU. So these are the topics that we've covered year on year, and they're in a good place in terms of their reputation and engagement, but it's still important to keep highlighting them. And menopause is one of those. We started that journey in 2019. And evolved it during the pandemic. But, we have our BAU where we make sure that we've got coverage of that, and not just on one day of the year. There'll be elements of it throughout the year. But then there'll be other topics that have come to the forefront for a number of reasons. It could be feedback from employees. It could be the media has heightened the awareness around a particular topic, or it could be that we know that we are lacking in some sort of support or education. So, for instance, there's been a big focus on neurodiversity. We started our neurodiversity journey in 2022 with our benefit diagnostics offering, but it's only from 2025 that we've actually started to evolve it outside of just benefits and well-being. We've worked with L&D for training for managers and employees. We've worked with the ERGs, with the Ability Network, to see how we can engage shared stories from neurodiverse employees or employees that are parents of neurodiverse children. And then, we've also done a big scale event where we're fortunate enough to have a budget that we can bring in celebrity speakers. So we had Christine McGuinness come in, and she shared her own personal journey, not only being a parent of autistic children, but find out later in life that she is autistic. So it's making sure that we, I guess, give a full shebang to these particular areas that it's been highlighted in the media, especially around ADHD and autism, with celebrities. So it's already on people's radar. But then also the NHS, the waiting list for the NHS to get any form of diagnosis is long. It's tough. It's going to affect that individual in different ways, mentally or physically, or they feel like they can't do their job because they're struggling with day-to-day technology, or they don't have the right level of support within the business. So it's looking at the wider impact and what the business can do to help support that employee as much as possible, not only from building their confidence to come forward and say, yeah, I've got ADHD, I need, some sort of reasonable adjustments. Can we sit down, have a chat? Actually working on their strengths, because this is the key thing. Someone who is neurodivergent, they've got some amazing superpowers. But unfortunately, a lot of them are in wrong positions, so that they can't really home in on those superpowers, or they're stretched, and therefore they're tackling fires left, right and centre. And of course, that then leads to burnout. But if people are able to get diagnosis, be able to get the adjustments that they need, whilst also working with the business to see what's the best position for them to really home in on those superpowers and support with maybe the challenges they might face within the workplace, that's only going to benefit everyone, the employee and the business, because, the innovation, the thought process, the way that neurodivergent employees can see things that neurotypical people can't, it's just incredible, but they need the opportunity to do that. So they don't just survive, they thrive in the workplace. So that's the key thing that we've been really homing in on 2025 and going to continue through into 2026, when we get ourselves hopefully in a position that it's not a reasonable adjustment, it's not additional tools, they are universal options. So it doesn't matter if you have a diagnosis or you don't have a diagnosis, they're already there. Anyone could tap into them. You shouldn't be seen as different. These are just ways that we can get the best out of the individual with the tools that we can offer. So that's my aim. That's my successful aim, to make sure that these tools are available for everyone, and you don't have to ask for permission for them. So yeah, that's the neurodiversity side of things. And then going into 2026, continue with neurodiversity, but also looking at long-term ill health and cancer. And whilst we highlight cancer and we've got good pathways in play, it's more around the training and awareness for everyone, but also things like return to work, or people still wanting to work even when they're going through treatment. So homing in on that, and then also the topic of domestic violence and coercive control, which I guess from an outsider's point of view, you wouldn't see that typically sit within wellbeing, but it does, because it affects the individual. And we do have service support that can help with those situations. But it's just, yeah, we know it's happening. We know it's not just a specific gender. We know it's across both genders, across the LGBTQ community. So it's just making sure that we are able to communicate that in a sensitive but a powerful way, to say, we recognise this is an issue. We want to help, be that you're the victim or the perpetrator. We can help. So reach out to us. So yeah, we are focusing on domestic violence and coercive control for 2026 as well.
And again, just taboo topics, also other topics that are very popular right now. Neurodivergence is everywhere, and it's just so comprehensive. You're thinking about all of these things. And as somebody who was diagnosed in my mid to late 30s with ADHD, and seeing how challenging it was for me as a person who, I have my own business, I'm self-employed, NHS is so long. If I don't go on the NHS, who do I turn to? Who do I choose? And seeing how you are providing that service for employees, and not only just providing the diagnosis benefit, but also adapting working environments, educating, making it normal, and looking at strengths, I just think it's amazing, Lauren. You are doing some really important work, and this conversation, I feel like we could just talk for hours. But unfortunately we do have to kind of wrap up at some point. And you mentioned in just now, when you were talking about ways of getting the word out, you talked about having screens in your office, having newsletters, all of these things. And when you said screens in your offices, it made me think of my closing question that I asked to all guests, which is, if you could put one message about well-being on a billboard that every workplace would see, what would it be?
Good question. What would it be? Make time for your well-being now, or be forced to make time for your ill health later.
Woo! Yeah.
It's all about longevity. It's all about longevity, and you shouldn't just all of a sudden think about your health when you've taken back, or you're really ill. You need to do what you can now, and those small changes, as we've spoken about, those small changes add up. And if you're able to embed those now, you're more likely to have a fulfilling life later on.
100% agree. I love that message. And as you said, it's so connected. If you're getting back pain, don't just go and get a massage. Think about holistically what else might be connected to that, and how your overall lifestyle is going. Because as you said, if you don't look at it now, we'll be forced to later. And that is,
we only have one body. We only have one body.
Sad truth. So, Lauren, thank you. This has been such an insightful conversation that I think is going to help so many people in HR and well-being, but also in general in life, because your insights are so relatable. So, yeah, thank you so much for making the time and for the really important work that you do every day.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.